guys, it's Jeremy here at Metal Music Meltdown, back with another video. Whatever today, guys, is something a little bit different. I wanted to shoot a video just talking briefly about buying physical media in 2025. I recorded a video similar to this in the past about, I had one video where I talked about just why I buy CDs still in general, and then another video kind of just ranting about general prices of music in general. But I wanted to kind of shift the focus and talk about, just buying physical media in 2025 and the pros and cons of each buying from different sources. And I came up with 5 different sources to talk about today. And I'll go through them pretty quickly. I'm just going to say the pros and cons of each one. And at the end, maybe what I think is probably the best for my taste or to get music. And I'm basing my mind frame around CDs specifically because I don't really buy vinyl. I started a vinyl collection, but I quickly stopped because I didn't want to have multiple formats of the same album and they're just getting too expensive. So I stuck to CDs. So I'll be in the mind frame of buying CDs for this video. So the first source I went with is the old school from a store directly. So as you know, over the years, physical stores have kind of depleted over the years. We have a chain here in Canada called Sunrise Records, which was formerly HMV, which went out of business, unfortunately. But Sunrise Records was their competitor, and they pretty much bought up a lot of their locations when HMV went under. So there's still Sunrise Records out there, like a chain version of a brick and mortar location. The disadvantage to going to a store, especially a chain style store, is that the selection for metal specifically is usually not as strong. It's usually a much smaller section, and I find those stores focus more on pop culture, like board games and pop figures and t-shirts and things like that. Not so much on the music. So, metal is already a smaller niche as it is. So they have like usually one section where you can find metal stuff. And normally it's just the more mainstream bands like Metallica, Maiden, Priest, Amon Amarth, they'll have In Flames and things like that. But if you want something obscure and more underground, you'll never find it there. The second option, the advantage of going to a store like that in general is the same reason going to an independent store is good, because it's the experience. It gets you out of the house, you go physically to the store, flipping through the racks, you might find something that you've never seen before. I always love going to the store to buy music. It's always one of my favorite things to do. But yeah, that's definitely a pro. The con of going to a physical store is the prices are usually a little bit higher than normal, but they have to pay for rent and stuff, so it makes sense. And then the selection is usually not there is kind of the con as well. But comparing a chain store to an independent store, we have a couple big independent stores downtown from me, like Sonic Boom is a good example if you're not familiar with them. If you're ever in the Toronto area, definitely check it out. Huge independent store. They sell a ton of used and new stuff. So to go to a store like that, again, the pro, they have a much larger selection because they focus on the music more. They have a much bigger metal sections, like rows and rows of metal. They have a lot of good used stuff for a decent price. So if you're looking for old catalog, like stuff to fill in collections of different bands, it's a good place to buy used copies of stuff if you don't mind it being used, of course. And the variety's there. And then again, like I said before, the whole experience of going to the shop, flipping through the racks and checking out what they got, talking to the guys who work there, discovering new bands, things like that. The con to stores like that, depending on where you live, I don't have a car at the moment, so for me, using public transit to go downtown for record shopping is kind of inconvenient. It takes almost an hour to get down there, and then so you have to make a day out of it, which I don't mind, but you just can't go as often because it's kind of a hassle to get there. So that's kind of the con of going to the physical store. Sometimes there's a lot fewer stores, so it's harder to get to one. If they're a little further away, it takes time and money, of course, to travel. So that's my first option. The second option is buying from the record label directly online or like a distro. The pros of buying from the record label is that they'll have the stock guaranteed because it's their band. So if you buy from the label, they're going to have the stock almost guaranteed. Of course, they're going to run out from time to time, but they usually replenish it pretty quickly unless it's just not being replenished anymore. But yeah, they always have the stock. And if you like one band from a label, you might find something else that you might come across kind of looking through their artists and stuff they carry. The disadvantage to buying through a label, lately especially, they've been jacking the prices not only on the actual CDs, but the shipping cost is what's been killing it for me for distros and labels, especially outside of the country. If you try ordering something from like Nuclear Blast or Metal Blade Records based in the US, back in the day, you used to pay like say $10 US for the CD, and then maybe $2 or $3 per disc for shipping, which was fair. So you could still get a decent price on a CD, especially Black Friday when they had deals. But lately, now the CDs are, $15 to $20 US, and you have to factor in the exchange rate. So a $15 US CD to them is really $20 to us, based on the US to Canadian exchange. And then they have almost the audacity to charge a $10 per disc shipping fee to have it shipped to Canada, and that is ridiculous. So who's going to buy a $15 US disc and then pay another $10 US to ship it? So now you're at $25, which is like over $30 Canadian. Like, it just becomes ridiculous. I've completely stopped even looking at record labels and a lot of distros outside of the country just because the shipping is so ridiculous. I just gave up. The one exception to that rule, as a pro, if you're buying from a record label or a distro within your own country, so I go, for instance, in Canada, we have CDN Records. I buy from a lot. You'll see my updates. And I found a couple other ones in Canada. Night Owl Merch, I think, is another one. And they have, reasonable pricing. I think Night Owl had free shipping over $100 kind of thing. But yeah, their prices are more reasonable. They are focused more on the underground music, so you can't really buy mainstream artists through them. But a lot of times you'll find gems. I've bought like Nervosa albums from them, Haunt, Crypta. I bought all of the Chemicide albums from CDN Records. A lot of the times you'll get a lot of good gems for like 10 or 12 bucks. And then the shipping is really reasonable as well. I think for like 4 CDs, they charge you like $7 for shipping. So it's pretty reasonable. And because it is within the same country, the delivery time is pretty quick. So yeah, pros of distros and labels, they have the stock, they have the variety of their own artist. The pricing is normally fair to good, but the shipping can be the biggest con because it takes time and the cost is usually through the roof. That's the other option. Third option would be buying from BandCamp, directly from the band. The obviously biggest pro of this is you're supporting the band directly. The majority of the money is going directly to the band, so they do kind of reap the benefit of it. So if you're like that, a super underground band that's like, especially if they're independent, not on the label yet, and you want to support them, you can order from their BandCamp. The negative thing about buying from BandCamp, unfortunately, again, is the shipping. A lot of bands really gouge you on the shipping and make money on the shipping for sure. Like I went to buy an independent CD a couple days ago. It was like a $10 or $15 US CD, but they were charging $15 to ship it to US, or to Canada, I should say. So then again, it becomes a 30, by the time you add the exchange rate, tax, shipping, it's like a $40 Canadian CD. I'm like, fuck that. I'm not paying $40 for a CD. I don't love any artist that much. So yeah, so the band's, it's good because it goes directly to the band. But they do gouge you in shipping a lot of the time. Not every band, but a lot of them overprice on shipping where they're making too much money on the shipping, in my opinion. Now, the only good thing about that, if you've kind of found a loophole, if you really like the band and you want to buy their latest album, maybe a back album if they still have stock on it, 1 or 2 t-shirts and like a patch. If you buy multiple items, I find their shipping becomes pretty reasonable then. For instance, one band, I went to buy their CD for like $10 US. They charged $9 US to ship it, so like doubled the price. So I go, God, here we go again. But I'm like, okay, I kind of want a t-shirt from these guys because I really dig their album. Their t-shirt was like $20 US. And when I added it to the cart, the shipping only went up $1. So now I'm getting the CD and a t-shirt shipped for $10. So the more you add to your cart, the more reasonable the shipping becomes. But that's one thing I kind of found with buying on BandCamp. The next option is buying from the band directly again, but physically, face to face at a show. This is one of my favorite ways to buy music. One, because you get to meet the band often. Sometimes if you buy one of their albums, they'll sign it for you as well. The prices are always pretty cheap. You can buy, especially up and coming band, they'll have like a flat rate of like $10 or $15 on their CDs, usually about $10, and they'll have them all laid out there for you. Quick, easy way to pick up their new album. If you are a band you're into and you want to pick up their last couple albums, usually they'll have some of their older albums available to buy as well. So many times I've seen a band live and I've really dug their music, and say they only had like 3 albums in total. If I really love them, I'm just gonna buy all their catalog and buy all 3 albums at one shot. And you can usually buy a CD or a t-shirt the same way from a smaller band, $25, pretty reasonable. And then you just, like I said, you're not paying shipping, you're not paying extra tax, you're not paying the conversion rate from the US. It's just straight $10 CD, $25 shirt, here's $35, thank you. Easiest, best way to buy music. And the band, and the pro of it as well, is that the music's still going directly to the band. The downfall to that obviously is you can't go to shows every week, and some bands you might not see live for like 20 years. So obviously there's good and bad things about that, but anytime you do get to see a band, I always bring extra cash because it's a perfect way to buy music, and especially t-shirts and merch as well. And the last option is Amazon. Amazon is kind of where I've been buying a lot of my music lately. The pro about buying Amazon, they have quite a good selection on Amazon. Again, most of the mainstream bands you'll find on there, but the more obscure underground bands, for the most part, you can't really get on there. Sometimes they'll surprise you, and after it's been out for a couple months, you'll see it kind of pop up randomly, but it usually be more expensive. The pros about buying from Amazon, if you add all the albums you want to your wish list, like new releases, old albums, even ones from like 20 years ago that you still want for your collection that you just want in general, create a wish list. Once a week, go on your wish list, or when you're ready to buy some music, and you can just organize your list from like cheapest to most expensive, and you'll see, if you're patient enough, you get some really good prices on Amazon, like really good. They had the newest Church of Misery album on there recently for under $9, brand new. They had an old Liar, it was a German thrash band, their debut album on there for under $9. I'm about to buy those actually next week. And yeah, I've seen the new Atrophy album for like $11 on there. Like the new High on Fire goes as low as $11. So you just have to have patience and wait for it to come down to a decent price. I'm not saying they all have to be $11, but they'll drop down to 13, 14. And with Amazon, if you don't have even if you're not a Prime member, if you spend over $35, you get free shipping. So that takes out the negative of the shipping cost. Their deliveries are pretty quick. Even if you opt in for the free shipping, it only takes usually about 3 or 4 days to get delivered. It's pretty quick, so you get it pretty fast. The only con to Amazon, if you pre-order albums on Amazon as well before they come out, usually they're a pretty reasonable price, between $16 to $20 for a new album, like a pretty mainstream band. But if you happen to miss the pre-order, or you don't have the cash at the time, or whatever, as soon as it does get released, the price of the album does tend to jack up pretty high. I've seen an album go for pre-order for like $17, and then the week after it gets released, it bumps up to like $35, like just some ridiculous amount. So there is a bunch of albums on there that are just like overly through the roof price that I just refuse to pay like $35, $40 for a CD, but I keep them on my list. Every so often when I'm ready to buy some more CDs, I'll jump on there and see what kind of catches my eye and what the prices are at. And 9 times out of 10, every time I'm ready to buy CDs, there's at least 5 or 6 albums that I want that are like $15 or less. I put them in a bundle, $100. I pick up 5, 6, 7 CDs, and I'm pretty happy with that. But otherwise, the cons of Amazon, again, they don't have the more underground stuff, the more obscure kind of things. But for pricing, if you're patient, they're really good. If you want an album pretty much right away, it can be a little bit more expensive. But shipping time is pretty great, and the prices generally are fair. So sorry for the longer video, guys. I just kind of wanted to discuss kind of the different options. I think my favorites overall, Amazon, if you're patient, I think is one of the best places to buy. You get it pretty quick. The prices can be really, really good if you catch them at the right time. And like I said, you get it pretty quick. You don't pay the shipping. There's no extra fees like that. And the other thing I forgot to mention about distros and stuff overseas, sometimes you run the risk of paying duty fees when it comes across the border too, which can tack on another $30 or $40 to your order. I almost pretty much given up on trying to buy from distros and stuff outside of the country that gets shipped in, because it gets ridiculously expensive when you're all said and done. It's just not even worth it anymore. So I lean more heavily on Amazon to buy a lot of stuff. I buy a lot from local distros in my own country, because you're avoiding paying those extra fees and like ridiculous shipping charges. And yeah, and then other option to buying from the band directly if you can. In person is more ideal, but BandCamp is good if you buy multiple items. But if you buy just the CD only, they tend to gouge on the shipping. So that's it, my rant for the day, guys. Let me know down below what's your preferred way to buy music, or if you're in the more rural area, are you more relying on Amazon, things like that. And if you are in Canada, please drop down below any distros you're aware of that sell a good variety of metal music. There might be a bunch out there I'm not familiar with, so please list down below any distros you might know of that I'm not familiar with. And thanks for watching, guys, and keep it metal.